when there's a new, when there's a change in your life, depending on how big the change is, sometimes we can have emotional responses to that change, and fear is one of those emotional responses. So if you're expecting a certain thing to happen, got a certain model for something, and there's a big difference in what that thing might be, there's going to be a fear and understanding in that. And also, I think fear comes into it as well as of a lack of control, because we want to be in control of certain things. When we aren't in control of certain things, there's fear can fill in the gap a little bit.
As it so often does.
Yeah, exactly.
It just seems like a default when we don't know something or the future is unpredictable.
Hello, and welcome back to AYP Spike. I'm Adam, AYP consultant and primary program co-lead, and I'm joined today by fellow AYP consultant and other primary program co-lead, Andy Feast.
Hello, good morning. Yes, I will never get sick of hearing that. AYP consultant. That's
just has it like kind of a white noise before you go to bed.
Exactly. It rolls off the tongue so beautifully as well. So very happy to be here. As you can see, we're in a different environment. And we were saying before this that we always say don't bother checking out the YouTube necessarily because it's not very interesting to look at. But today, check out the YouTube because there's some interesting. Like we're in Andy's gaff today, and it's lovely. Thank you. First time here, isn't it?
It's my first time. I'm having a fantastic time.
Yeah.
I've been offered teas and waters, and it's been fantastic.
No milk though, that's a problem. No. But we have been away this week, so it's been a bit slapdash and no shopping and all that fun stuff that I won't bore you with. But no, I'm very happy that you're here, man. I can't take no credit for this place, man. I really can't. Just in terms of interior design,
it's lovely.
Facebook Marketplace sofas. That's what you're sitting on right now. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Andy on the Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, too right, man. So the missus has done a really nice job with how it looks, man, and it's comfy. But that's like, get rid of these sofas, man. I want new sofas, but they're good. They're good. Man. No, it's you'll notice the sound quality is better because there's more soundproofing. So we might be here more often. Yeah. So for Alan, this is a bit of a trek. If he did want to come here every Friday.
Yeah, we'll probably go back to the middle ground.
next
week. But
sorry, the 140-mile round trip.
Lovely to be here today.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man.
Fantastic. No, of course, and obviously, as you can see from the massive pumpkin video viewers, we're recording this on Halloween, so happy Halloween. Obviously,
Halloween.
You're hearing this in Christmas season because as soon as midnight hits tonight, boom, it's Christmas time.
We'll get the tinsel out.
Bust Mariah out and all that stuff.
Yeah. But I feel like you got to milk Christmas more. I don't do that enough, man. It's like 12th of December and then that's
really?
it.
Yeah, no, I think, I don't know, I get a vibe when Christmas starts. It's not yet for me, but I don't know, I quite enjoy the build up to it, you know. It's a bit upsetting after Christmas, isn't it? After that kind of the gap after, because like it's all fun. The fun start of winter, and then you've got the midwinter, which is the worst bit, and then the fun bit of spring. But so happy Halloween, everyone. Hope you had a super fun trick or treating, whatever you're up to. Yeah, fun partying. You know,
you doing anything tonight?
Nope. Absolutely not. I'm editing this show.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to beating Leeds tomorrow.
God, we're living life.
Well, I mean, this is what mid-20s looks like, man. Yeah. This is a raucous Friday night out on the town. No, not for me. But yeah, so today, keeping on the Halloween theme, we are actually going to be talking about fear. Dun, dun, dun. Fear and what it is in kind of neuroscience sense, and also how we kind of get around fear and goals, which we'll get to in a minute. So starting with fear. I think it's really important to kind of conceive of fear, first of all, as an emotional reaction to something. We've talked in our first episode about uncertainty and what uncertainty is in the brain and basically change and why it's so difficult. Very basically, when something changes, your brain uses models for everything. It has a model for everything. I've got a new model now for Andy's house. Didn't have it before. I've got a new one. It's built it this morning and now I will have that model forever. But when there's a change in your model for something, your brain has to use energy to create a new version, which is what stress is, which is why it doesn't like change, because your brain's trying to conserve energy and be a bit lazy. When there's a change in your life, depending on how big the change is, sometimes we can have emotional responses to that change, and fear is one of those emotional responses. So if you're expecting a certain thing to happen, got a certain model for something, and there's a big difference in what that thing might be, there's going to be a fear and understanding in that. And also, I think fear comes into it as well as of a lack of control, because we want to be in control of certain things. When we aren't in control of certain things, there's fear can fill in the gap a little bit.
As it so often does.
Yeah, exactly.
It just seems like a default when we don't know something or the future is unpredictable, which, go back to our old episodes and we talk about this stuff quite a lot, but just having the ability to recognise things that you're afraid of and worried about is one of the most powerful things you can have as an individual. That self-awareness.
Yeah. I think it's also worth knowing that sometimes with fears, there's not always something you can do about it. Worries and fears are similar because I think that you can worry about something that you're scared about. You're fearful of something you're worried about. They can obviously be different because you're not always. A worry is sometimes not something you're scared of necessarily, but it's just something you're worried about. But I think it'd be instructive to talk about some things we're scared of. And crucially, I think there's a couple of categories here. Some fears are things that you can't do anything about. For example, the socio-economic political climate in the world makes me quite fearful. I can't do much about that. So obviously, whilst that's worth considering understanding that fear, there's not a lot I can do about that. So we're today going to focus on fears that we can have a little bit of a control over and a bit of kind of fears that hold you back from stuff. Because, for example, I used to be someone who's very scared of public spaces in general. I used to be quite claustrophobic, not like diagnosed wise, but like I just didn't like being in massive rooms full of people doing these, for example, gigs were quite difficult for me. I just didn't like train stations, trains, public transportation. I didn't like
tube,
being around a lot of people. Exactly, tube. It was very scary, very fearful experience because I'm from a small town, just not many people around me most of the time. I'm not really used to that kind of idea of having loads of people around me, or I wasn't at the time. And so that's something I was really scared of. As talked about in a previous episode, I'm a nervous flyer. That's a fear I've worked really hard to get over. And as we said before, like this stuff doesn't just go away. You're not cured from
for sure
some of these fears. But yeah.
I personally think it's we've got to a place in society where why have we made it so acceptable to have loads of armpits in your face every morning when you're going to work? How's that become a thing that's been allowed to happen? That makes no sense, man. Literally, like 2025, and I've got this sweaty bloke's armpit in my face. You know what I mean?
What a mate.
Yeah, it's like, let's normalise that. That's fine.
Well, the thing is, I'm normally right in the kind of the elbow area.
You're fine, mate. You are the armpit.
I am the armpit. I am the problem. Yeah, no.
You're 5'7" like me. You are the recipient of armpits in the face. So. Exactly. Yeah, that's the tube. I think the sentiment's the same there, Adam. The tube, and I remember when I was a kid, just like going to like big, busy places, crowded, and it just felt like you're in a sea of legs.
Oh my god!
And that I think that's carried with me now. I'm nearly 24, and that's still something that I'm like, yeah, crowds, man. And I think that the main purpose of this episode is to say that we're all scared of things. We all have 100%. Fears, worries, anxieties. Let's say that as a triple threat. But as long as we don't, as you rightly said, don't let these fears actually dictate and control what we do. You have to try and not allow that to happen. And that's easier said than done.
100%.
Of course it is. And we'll go into a bit about how we can try and challenge that. But just knowing that you can deal with it and you can challenge it, with all these negative emotions that we can feel, our ability to change these are down to us.
100%. 100%. Exactly. Yeah. I think an instructive way of talking about it is talking about my fear. One of the main things I think that helps is exposure, because if we think about it in a model sense, right, your brain is making models of something. The reason that I was scared of tubes and public spaces and big crowded rooms is, as I said earlier, I grew up in a small town where you didn't really see loads and loads of people all the time. So it was just something I didn't have a model for. My brain had no idea what was going on in that situation. So the immediate reaction to the massive change in just amount of people or space I was in was an emotion of fear, a response of fear. And as we talked about in a previous episode, it's worth thinking about emotions as your body and brain's reaction to an event in your life, to a change in your life, and kind of seeing it not necessarily as real. The fear is just uncertainty and not knowing this, not having a model, not understanding for how this thing works. So one of the first and most important ways of kind of getting over some fears is to do it.
Yeah.
One of the problems with these fears is that it meant gigs were quite scary for me, and just a massive amount of people in the same room in quite a small space when you're standing up, especially, it's quite a big, intense experience. but then I wouldn't be able to go to gigs. You know, I really enjoy going to
missing
gigs.
out on a massive cultural experience. You know,
but there's no way that sitting at home watching videos of it on YouTube or whatever, you're going to be able to get over that fear, because it's to do with experience. It's to do with experiencing something and allowing your brain to build a model for something. And also, you know, you allowing your brain to go to an experience, it ending up being fun and fine, and you go home and it's like, oh, it's okay. You know, because I think that you can you can spin up a version of something that isn't how it is. And then that becomes your reality of it because you haven't actually experienced it.
Definitely.
And that's what fear is. It's the uncertainty of something. And it kind of, then your worry system activates and you start predicting negatively about that thing, what it looks like, what it's like, yada, 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 yada. And none of it's true. None of it's real. None of it's what it's actually like. But you don't know any different because you haven't got a model for it because you haven't actually experienced it.
Definitely. I think the simplest, you strip it all back, the simplest way to vision fear is people that are scared of the dark.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is literally the unknown. People are scared of the dark, really not because it's dark, it's because we don't know what's in the dark.
Yes.
Most, I can't say all the time because that's not true, but 99.9% of the time there is nothing in the dark to be scared of. Do you know what I mean? So it's like we are worried about something that we can't see, so our brain does this.
That's a really good example.
Well, isn't it? Because our brain then goes, we predict what's in the dark, and because of the culture of horror movies and all those fun, horrendous things that make me cry.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. You predict that there's something bad there. So that's why you're worried about it. You're worried about what's in it. And I think that is exactly the same as other fears. You worry about what's there, and in reality, it's just not. There is nothing there. So exactly. Why not just, wade out into the dark and just see what's going on? Because there's nothing going on. Exactly. So you have to put yourself in, and we're massive at this AYP, aren't we? Like, just putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and positions that you wouldn't ordinarily want to for the betterment of how you're going to react in the future. So you just got to do it. You just got to do it.
Exactly.
And a big one for me was driving. So I passed a while ago now, but when I first passed, I had this awful warehouse night job that I was working 12-hour shifts in a warehouse for about 6, 7, 8 weeks, just as a little temp thing over Christmas. And it was like a 15-minute drive. It was the industrial estate back where we're from. Yeah. And I just, from where I was, and I was like, I can't do this. I'd rather walk 45 minutes in the rain at 6 in the morning than drive down the high street.
Really?
Yeah, massively.
Wow. What was it? What was it like? Because obviously you could drive.
Yeah, I could drive.
What was the fear? You're driving or someone else is driving?
I wasn't even like, at that point, obviously I was competent enough to pass and to drive, but it was just, there was a massive stigma in my head about, I just can't do this. I can't put myself in a situation where I'm in control of this lump of metal that I've got to go down and drive, and parking stress me out. And my partner now will just laugh at me when, even now, I drive miles and miles every week now, but even now, when we have to go park somewhere new, I'm like, what's the car park like? Massively, because that is something that I've stressed myself out over so much for no real reason, because I've been completely unscathed in my first year and a half of driving. But it's a really odd 100%. Thing that I've just built up. And I think you are your worst own enemy in that sense, because like, I've got the model now to go, mate, you literally travel, I do 200-300 miles a week, and it's like nothing's ever been bad, nothing ever's gone wrong, So what am I doing, man? So that's my way of just explaining, like, you have to do those things. If I just walked to that warehouse job every day, well, I wouldn't have been able to move here because I live 2.5 hours away from the office. And where my parents are and all that stuff. It
just limits your experience, doesn't it? It just means that you can't do something, and also as we say before, like this idea of neuroplasticity, the more you are practicing things subconsciously that you don't know. If you're not kind of engaging with a fear directly, and challenging a fear, it's getting stronger, and it's more embedding in your head, and meaning it's going to limit your experience even more.
It is.
So I think that's a perfect example of it. Like, when I first learned to drive, and I've been driving for a bit longer than you.
You have.
I was like, every time I went out for a drive, it's like, am I going to make it home from this? Because the same thing. It's like, I passed really well. I passed my first time. Like, a good learning driving experience. I was very careful and safe and all that stuff. But every time I went out, it's like, am I going to come back? And now it's automatic, because it's just something I do so regularly that you don't think about it all the time.
No, exactly.
And I think that there's a certain element, especially when driving, driving is an important thing. It is dangerous. Depending on how you're doing it and depending on how other people are doing it. So it's really important to be careful and cautious. And I think actually leads to another really good point, is fear is not always a negative thing. Your brain is scared about things because it's trying to keep you safe.
100%.
Like we talked about in the episode about anxiety and worry, your brain's job is keeping you alive, right? So it's predicting these things and being worried about these things to try and keep you away from something. It's a fear is an avoid emotion, right? It's one of those emotions. It's like, do not do that thing because it's gonna hurt you. So let's stay away from that thing. And as we've said before, your brain lies to you. Some things aren't actually going to hurt you. So it's not worth listening to that. But also understanding what it's trying to do is it's trying to keep you safe. The fear of driving for you was your brain going, I want to stay, I want to stay okay here. This is a scary experience, but obviously it's fine. And you've got to, this is why it's really important to kind of battle those things and work to challenge them, because otherwise you wouldn't have been able to, do that job, move here, all these other experiences, drive, road trips are fantastic fun. You wouldn't have been doing any of that if you just not engaged and challenged that fear, because that fear would then be also growing in that absence of challenge.
Definitely. And I spoke to my dad about that specific thing, and he was just like, well, look, you had to go through what was actually quite a, not to oversell it, but it was really challenging to get myself behind the wheel. And I had to make myself feel really anxious and really uncomfortable. And that's what it was. It was feeling like, I can't worry about it. I'd be sleeping poorly because I knew I had to get up and do this stupid little drive. And I had to put myself in that uncomfortable situation because, like you said, that if I didn't, you enable it, you reassure yourself that you're doing the right thing by avoiding this experience that you think is going to be negative, and then you do it. You're like, come on, man. Every day I'd get home and I'd be like, what are you worried about that for? Like, come on, like, you're fine.
And it's fine, exactly.
So you've just got to keep doing it. And it's not like, this isn't like I did it one time and I was fine. This was, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of feeling uncomfortable.
Exactly. And it's like, if we think about, I think what's really helpful, what's helped me to understand lots of stuff is thinking about basically any process in the brain, like learning. Practicing anything. Anything you do with your brain, you can practice and get better at. If it's something like a trait, like kindness, for example, you're not just kind and that's it. You're not always kind. You practice kindness and you get better at being kind in that way. But with a fear as well, it's not like, for example, you're scared of flying, you go on a plane, you're sorted. If anyone who's scared of flying has been on a plane, that probably you weren't just sorted out after the plane. You're probably really glad you got off the plane and it's all okay.
It's a relatively repetitive situation.
You built the brick in the wall of kind of getting over the fear of flying, but you aren't there.
No.
And I think this is a really important part, is practicing it, and part of challenging fears is practicing challenging that fear. So it's driving regularly. It's not letting, if you pass your test and then didn't drive, you have the qualification, you'd be able to drive, but you wouldn't have practiced that thing. You'd be more and more and more scared of it, and the absence of practicing it, you're actually going to build up that fear.
Definitely,
it's going to make it even harder to challenge it at the time. I think what's a good kind of lead to the next bit of the thing we want to discuss, which is kind of like goals and setting goals, is talking about, as soon as you notice you have a fear, and a fear, again, these are fears that you can do something about, fears that you can control, fears that are kind of maybe in like ones in your personal life, is to notice you have it and then try as soon as you possibly can to challenge it.
Definitely.
Even in small ways, because as we say, if you aren't, it's not going to be challenged. It's going to grow and get stronger and stronger in your brain and your head and stuff like that.
So if you relate it to, just before we go on to goal setting, because I think this will segue quite nicely into it, but like, some of our clients and some of the students that we work with, maybe what they're worried about and fearful of and scared of at the moment might be their exams, right? You can actually have a fear about your exams.
100%. Right? Exams are extremely stressful.
Of course they are. So if we relate the same sort of premise that we've spoken about and how to cope and deal with them for your exams and why you might be feeling the way you are, a lot of students will go into the avoidance phase of the exams, which is they're in May, June. I say, well, I've still got time to work and deal with this stuff. But at the moment, I don't need to worry about it. It doesn't need to be at the forefront of my mind. And what I think what you're doing there, you'll hear teachers say this in assemblies, because I know for a fact that can't just be our school that was talking about it, but students will bury their head in sand, so just to make themselves feel better in the present and in the moment, because there's something like the exams is such a fearful thought that they would rather just not do any work for it, because that makes it real, that makes it, bring it to life.
100%.
So you avoid it, you bury it, and you try not to think about it as much. And that's, as you're going to, obviously, it's the completely wrong way of doing things. You've got to attack it head on. You can't ignore it and avoid it. You've got to start putting in the processes to deal with it in a more healthy, useful way for you, which is preparation, being communicative about your worries, all those things that we do in our coaching flows with our clients is stuff that you need to practice.
Yeah. I think about it as a model, right? The reason your exams are stressful is because you know that it matters. Exams do matter, and your grades matter, and how you do matters. But also because you don't have a model for it, you haven't developed a model for what the exact exam paper looks like doing. That's why you do loads of mocks, so that you practice only, you practice the learning you're doing, in a neuroscience sense, you're practicing the model for understanding how an exam works. The exam conditions. I hated exam conditions. I don't know anyone who likes them.
No.
But sitting in a room with a piece of paper and a pen and having to do the work in an hour and a half or whatever the time is, that's stressful, man. That's tough.
It is.
And it's something that everyone has gone through. If you're listening to this, you've either gone through it or you're going to go through it. Those are the things.
That's something we all have in common.
Exactly. And it's extremely stressful. I don't know any adult who's not found exams stressful.
Yeah.
And the only people who haven't found exams stressful are the people who kind of worked massively in schools to make exams less stressful. You're not even understanding the neurochemistry of why that works. We want to talk about kind of, we talked about a couple of fears, a couple of worries that we can kind of, and how to handle it. And I think one is exposure, just practice doing the thing you're scared of, as much as you can. Something like fear of flying, it's difficult because it costs quite a lot of money to fly and you need to go on holiday. But practicing that every year, whenever you guys, if you're lucky enough to go on holiday, stuff like that, just practicing that is the most important way of doing it, and just setting yourself little goals and little ways to practice that kind of thing. And I think that part of the understanding also is, one of the activities we do with the young people we work with in primary schools, and we do our primary program, is we talk about kind of your kind of far goals, and we're talking long-term far goals, where do you want to be in your life? What's your dream job? What's your kind of passion? What's your hobby? Where do you want to be at? And it's we get some great answers. Astronaut is a common one. Footballer, classic. We get some YouTubers, which is shows.
New.
That's a new one. That's probably what I wanted to be when I was younger, I think, as well.
Podcasters.
Living the absolute dream, mate. Living the absolute dream. But yeah. So, but to get to that point, you've got to do work today. If you're in school, it's just doing as well as you can in your school experience and doing as well as you can in your exams. And I think that what is really helpful for our brains is setting goals and then also working towards those goals in kind of, if you've got a massive problem, break it up into smaller steps is number one way of solving it. If that's overcoming a fear, if that's getting to where you want to be in 25 years or something like that, if that's where you want to be in 5 years, if that's where you want to be in a couple of months, breaking it up into smaller steps is a brilliant way of doing it, and also teaches your brain, so there's a thing, as we said earlier, whatever you do with your brain, you can practice it.
Yeah.
So self-belief is also a practice. With people who don't have much self-belief, for example, one of the best ways to demonstrate self-belief and that you can do something, because that's often a hurdle, is people are capable of incredible things, but they just don't think they are. So they don't try, they don't do the things that they can do because they don't think they can. And there's motivation is a muscle. Self-belief is a muscle. You can practice it, and you can practice it by practicing it. And one of the ways to also help with that practice is to show yourself doing those things. So if you've got a difficult target to get to, if you break up into smaller steps and you are consistent on the steps, you're working towards it, you're showing yourself that not only am I capable of doing this, I'm doing it really well,
That's spot on.
Yeah, and rewarding your brain as well. Rewarding in a metaphysical sense, in a kind of an emotional sense, I'm done, you're proud of yourself because you've achieved the goal, but also actual physical rewards, if you've had a difficult week, nothing wrong with having a bar of chocolate on a Friday night,
Too right. Go crazy.
After doing a mock exam, have a sweet, go and play Fortnite for all that stuff.
The whole idea that and this is something I struggled with when I was 15, 16, when people would say, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
I had a clear idea about what my career would have been. things happened that made I had to go and completely U-turn it. But it's a tough question to ask these youngsters, man, because, you know, you're asking, like, where do you want to be when you're 24, 25, 35? We are that age, and well, I wouldn't have said this.
I would not have said this either.
Do you know what I mean? So like, it is tough to know where you're going to end up, and it's important to say to like those that are listening, if you are some of our students or clients, or if you're a bit younger, that it's okay to not know. All right, it is okay to not know. What you've got to do then is you've got to narrow your focus of attention into, well, what do I need to do in the short term to keep those doors open for me in the long term? For your GCSE students out there, well, it's to get the best grades possible to open the doors to the college you want to go to do the courses you want to do.
Yes. So that's like a medium goal, isn't it?
100%. 100%.
And then, so the far goal is like, you know, astronaut. Okay. Yeah. Far goal's astronaut. Medium goal is...
Too right.
I'm in year 11, so year 11 exams doing well.
Yeah.
What's the short goal for that? It's like...
Yeah, just making sure that you are implementing the right strategies to build up the routines and habits to get to a place where you are succeeding in your exams. And I do a lot of what I'm doing at the moment is this goal setting with clients. And it's interesting because for those that do know what they want to end up doing to a rough extent or fully, some of these, you know, they're like, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that, and that will enable me to do this and do what I want to do. All right, great. When you've got such a clear goal, it'd be amiss of me to say that that's not easier, because in a way that it makes it a bit more real, because you know you want to be a train driver. Well, what do you need to do to be a train driver? Well, I need to get these grades, I need to go and do this thing at college, then I need to go and do this apprenticeship. Excellent. We've got real clear steps here. The issue is, people like myself, when I was that age, I didn't know. All right, so that's when I find it difficult with my clients, and that's when I know that the battle we have working with them is for them to see the benefit of implementing the strategies now to not shut doors off for you. Because so often, if you don't really know where you want to end up, you can become lost in the endless abyss of everything. Well, I don't know. Like, do I need to do this course? I don't know if I like that yet. You just haven't made your mind up about the things that you're passionate about, and that's all right. It's just about then installing the right character, personality traits to make yourself successful in the future.
100%.
If you don't start implementing ways of being resilient and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations by revising subjects you absolutely despise, then they are probably going to be traits that hinder you and halt your progress in your professional life, in whatever way that looks like. So just about putting in the right effort, the right graft, making sure that you positive self-talk to tell yourself that it's fine, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm going to be kind to myself by putting in the work to get the grades that when I do finally find out, I could be 25, 26, I helped myself out when I was 15, 16 because I developed good traits, good habits. I put in the hard work, got the grades that opened the door to college, went to college, happy days, thank you very much. See you later.
Yeah.
That's the sort of stuff we're talking about.
Exactly.
Right?
And I think that's such a good point, because it's like, I think when we're talking about goals and overcoming fears and stuff like that, like, you know, no matter what point you are in your life, there will be new fears that you haven't, you know, discovered yet. You know, there will be new things to be worried about. There will be
like council tax. That's a fun one.
That's a real fear. And which band you're in. But there's also like the understanding that I think it's such a good point. Like, we aren't doing necessarily what we thought we'd do.
No.
At our age, we're doing it. That doesn't mean we've failed
no.
in that thing at all. In fact, you know, it means we've succeeded because you're, you know, as any adults will know, it's not like linear. It's going to be a zigzag. Careers, you know, you'll change things. Your passions will change. Your hobbies will change. You know, on a side note, I think asking kids what degree they want to do at like 18, 19, even what A-levels they want to do is difficult, because you're really into one thing at the time, and then you're not. Like, for example, my A-levels, my original A-levels were computer science, physics, and maths. You don't know me that well, listeners, but maths is not my strong suit. But I thought I was really good at physics because my GCSE grades were all pretty similar, you know, A's and B's, and my physics grade was pretty good, and I liked my teacher in GCSE physics, so I was like, okay, let's do physics A-level. And I had to drop out by January in that first year of A-levels because I would not have passed it. So I changed, and then I did English Lit, Media Studies, and Politics, which are
such a huge
the opposite of each other, and that just shows like that is my direction, my trajectory was like, okay, I'm going to become I thought I was becoming a physicist, going to become a computer scientist, a programmer. I wanted to be someone who made games. I wanted to be a video game designer at like 18, 19, and that's what I was going to do. And then my path changed because I wouldn't have been able to do the A-levels to get on that way, but also because of I changed what I wanted to do. I didn't fancy that stuff anymore. My personality changed a little bit in that way, just from growing up a little bit, and it sent me on a different path. And that doesn't mean this path is less good, less effective. It doesn't mean I failed, but it does mean that there's been a change. And I think that something that's really important to understand is there are going to be setbacks on the way to these goals, and how we respond to those setbacks. When you just throw the whole thing out, the goals change, and you change to meet those goals. But building in the resilience, that self-belief, that practicing that muscle of understanding, practicing the muscle of setting goals and completing them, no matter what, was going to allow you to believe that you can do anything.
Yeah.
And that when those changes come in your life, and they will come, that you're able to overcome them and to battle them. Positive changes, negative changes, you're able to, fulfill yourself in a way, no matter what the situation is. And I think that setting goals for whatever target it is really good. And I think, a really good point to ending in similar to the last episode, is if you think of, we introduced a temporal self last time, which is the idea of you have a past you, which you can learn from your previous experiences, the present you, which is you right now, hello present you, and then your future you. Future you is where you want to be in, tomorrow or a few weeks time or a year's time or, any point in the future. For that person in the future to be able to do something, you need to do something today, whatever you want that person to be able to do. If that person is kind of, a certain job, then okay, let's set some goals today. How are we going to be able to do that job? How are we going to be able to get to that job in 5 years time or whatever? If that person is just, not scared of something anymore, okay, we need to act today. How can we get over that fear? Because we can get over fears. It's just our brain's model for something, and it hasn't updated the model, hasn't got a better model for it. So how can we get over that fear? And it's, exposure to it, talking to people about that fear, practicing in small ways, trying that fear out. Like if you're afraid of the dark, maybe trying having a little bit of a, if you have a bedroom, having a little bit of darkness in the corners, but not covered, not just immediately completely in the dark, stuff like that. Like if it's flying, little, just on your summer holidays, trying, if you are in a position to, choose kind of where to go, as it were, smaller holidays, with shorter flights, so you're kind of in and out, done quickly, and then in a few years time you can work up to a big transatlantic holiday where you're on a flight for 8 hours or so, like that. Kind of building up and practicing that thing you're scared of. And is driving, like for example, at that point it doesn't sound like you would have been able to do like a 2-hour epic to Winchester or something, would it? No. Would not been able to do that. But practicing those small drives. I'm just gonna go to Tesco today. I'm gonna go to Sainsbury's, gonna go to Waitrose, just quick 10 minutes down the road. I know the roads really well, so that then in a few years' time you can go to a completely new place because you're so confident in your model for driving that then you show up in the parking. You can figure that out at the time, and proving to yourself that you're capable of doing it, because what you did in that example is you proved to yourself, I can do this drive every day. Even in the dark, and driving in the dark is a completely different experience. You prove to yourself that every day you can do that, and then you got to a point where you can now, you can do anything. And driving is still, if I'm right, something that's still a little bit worried about. It's not a fear that's gone away.
Yeah, it definitely, if I go new places and that, it's still something.
Exactly.
I'll do it, which is the main thing, but it's not something I'm jumping for joy about,
Exactly, but it doesn't. But the whole point is it doesn't stop you.
Yeah,
it doesn't stop you doing it. It's not going to stop you going on a road trip with your family. It's not going to stop you doing this, going to a new place. It's not going to stop you getting into work, all that stuff. And I think that's the point with these fears that are stuff we can control, stuff we can do about. It's about what we do about them, and we don't have to let them control us. And I think, on an actual final point, I said a final point a minute ago, this idea of neuroplasticity that we mentioned in last week's episode, that if we don't we got really good at something and then we stop practicing it, and then we'll lose the ability, we'll lose that practice, kind of that strengthened neural architecture. I think this happens with fears too. Like, I used to be really scared of flying, then I went flying quite regularly for a few years, and then I didn't fly for a couple of years because of COVID and stuff, and then I got quite scared of flying again. This is something you need to keep practicing, because these fears often do stay with you. So one of the best things for Andy would be to keep driving, which you do all the time, obviously, to record this podcast most of the time as well. And that's going to keep those kind of fears at bay, because often these things, even though we have an updated model for it, it's going to be something that we are going to keep worrying about and keep fearing unless we keep on practicing it. If you defeat a fear, you overcome it. That's amazing and fantastic. But also understand that you need to keep working at it. It's not, it's not a full stop at the end of these things. It's always, as we always say, a continual process. And this is a journey you're going to embark on, and it's making these little changes, those little steps every day to get to those goals you want to get to. And if that goal is overcoming a certain fear and stuff like that.
Wonderful. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Oh, wow.
What a lovely way to end, eh?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Thank you so much for listening to AYP Spike. Remember, come and check us out on YouTube. Have a look at Andy's gaff. Yeah, it's lovely.
Have a look.
We'll do one from my house at some point.
We will.
We'll swap it over so we can just have a look at everyone's houses.
For sure. That's
what we want.
Home the hammer. Check out the TikTok. We've got a TikTok page.
Oh, please do.
Very nice and short bits of neuroscience. Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're everywhere.
We've got all of them, mate. Well, AYP are everywhere. We're only on AYP Spike's only on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube because that's all I can hack
for sure.
But yes, no.
Check us out.
And check us out, and also email us. Want it to be an open conversation with everything. If you've overcome a fear, let us know what your fear was and how you've overcome it. If you want help with a specific fear, then email us and we can help you overcome it. This is what we do. But yeah, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you later.